Welcome. I'm Dr. Ken Keis. I'm an expert in leadership, purpose, and wellness. And in today's show with Dove, the most awesome podcast host in the world, we're going to talk about purpose and why it's critical and important for leadership, for life, and for everything that you do. Stay tuned.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty interview series. I'm your host, Dov Baron, founder of Full Monty Leadership, and I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness so you can reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your life, in your business, and in your leadership impact. Today, we're going to be taking an insider look at one of my favorite subjects, purpose. Is it a new age concept, or can you actually lead and live on purpose? We'll find out. Remember, you can chat about this episode or any of our past episodes on our new Facebook group, which is Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Podcast. If you're a new listener, new viewer, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in. We're about to go full Monty. Remember, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you get your podcasts. We are always in need of your help in staying relevant, so please get yourself over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. When you do, let us know on that group inside Facebook, and maybe we'll give you a shout live on the show. You can catch us on traditional radio stations across the United States every Monday and Thursday, where we are broadcasting all the way from Georgia to Wisconsin. If you're a regular, big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners, with a potential reach of 2.5 to 4 million listeners for every single show. We're honored and grateful to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. And by the way, you can listen to us on Google Home and Alexa. Simply say, play Dov Baron Podcast. Again, thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. As a leader, whether you're a CEO, someone in the C-suite, a sales leader, entrepreneur, a leader in any capacity who watches or listens to this show, you know that I speak on stages about this. I work with companies around it and about finding purpose. But the question is, does it matter? Does purpose matter? Is purpose some cool passing phase? And can we actually lead on purpose? And if we can, how do we begin this quest for purpose? Well, stay tuned because you're about to find out. Our guest on this episode is Ken Keis. Dr. Ken Keis is a foremost global authority on behavioral assessment strategies and an expert in leadership, purpose, and wellness. He's a podcast host, which I was honored to be on his show back in April. He's authored over 4 million words of content, including 500 articles, 4 books, and dozens of assessments to help others realize their full potential. Ken's purpose is to help others live, lead, and work on purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Ken Keis.
Yay, so I'm yelling. Thank you, Doug, for having me on the show. There's those millions of listeners, 2.5, actually growing to 3.5, I think. I feel it right now for the show. Thanks for the honor to be on the show, and thanks for being a guest on my show. It was awesome just to have you and just to play with you in this pond.
Thank you, sir. It was fun. And you know what our listeners and viewers don't know is we spent about half an hour just trying to get this show running. So I'm really glad to have you here. Now, as I said, you've written 4 books. The last 3 are Why Aren't You More Like Me? The second one was Deliberate Leadership, and the latest, The Quest for Purpose. So for those who are only just beginning to inquire into purpose, how would you define purpose?
A purpose is an underlying foundational belief system or an anchor point, something that you are always achieving. It's an active tense statement, Dov. It's not something that I ever achieve like a goal. It's something that I'm achieving. So my purpose, as you did in the introduction, is to help others to live, lead, and work on purpose. When is that done? How do I do it? That's not part of it. It's really, what is my meaning? Where am I coming from? What am I about in my being versus my doing?
When you look at leadership today, whether it's the strengths or the weaknesses of leadership, let's go the other side for a minute. Where do you see the failing in leadership today? And I'm not talking business or politics. I'm talking about everything in the context of leadership.
Well, there was a study done. So what is the factors that really cause leaders to fail? Number one is hubris and arrogance. And I don't need this training. I don't need to do this. I remember working for a Fortune 100 company as a trainer. Everybody showed up for the training except for the VP who organized it, because he says, I don't need it. I'm too busy for this. The other one was a lack of interpersonal communication or people skills. So those are the two that are really the core of the research shows, is that I don't think I need anything. And leadership is really about influencing, helping other people. If I can't do that, and I can't do that effectively, then that's the real gap in leadership, about caring about others. I mean, we both know Marshall Goldsmith, and I've hung around. He says, when we shift from caring about ourselves to caring about others is the transformation of a leadership mindset.
Yeah, it's. I think it's very easy to slip into the arrogance of, I don't need to know this. I mean, we've been into companies where the founders said, well, I just don't need to do this, or a senior leader, I don't need to do this, or I've only got another 5 years left in the company, so I don't need to do this. And I'm like, wow, you're just like begging for the company to collapse. You're begging for the people to leave. You're begging for a lack of loyalty. It's like, get the arrogance out of the way. I mean, this stuff just doesn't wash anymore, right? I mean, you and I have been in this game for a long time. And I know when I started out, that stuff was, I got it. That was how it was. And you kind of like, I disliked it, but I kind of had to put up with it. But it's not that anyway, right? Anymore.
No. I mean, you need to lead by example. So, okay, everybody else goes to the training. And so if I'm not modeling it, I'm not looking at it, I'm not doing it, then why would you expect your team to do it? Where's loyalty going to come from the fact you do it? Don't do what I do, just do what I say. Well, right. There's a disconnect. You talk about authentic leadership being congruent. Well, that's not congruent at all. And I'm not suggesting that everybody's like that. There is a shift. There is a move. We are lifelong learners. We're constantly consuming. I consume an hour or two every day of research of some sort, a podcast, maybe your podcast, reading a newsletter. I just have to. And in even that, I kind of feel like I'm a little bit behind. So for everybody else that's a leader, that's really like the core, the foundation of growing.
And the interesting thing about it is that, this world of leadership and corporate leadership and those kind of things, that's not where you started out. That's not your foundation.
Oh, no, not at all.
Right. And just to tell our audience, I mean, Ken and I live about an hour away from each other. Is that right?
About that.
Maybe a little bit more. Just over an hour away. And I live right in the downtown city core, and Ken lives out towards the countryside. And that's actually where your history is, right?
Well, my grandfather bought a farm, and I grew up on a dairy farm. And, you talk about leadership or whatever, but I learned hard work. My parents worked for 13 years without a day off. They expected that from me as well. So then that's sort of when I left, where I wanted a half a day. I wanted a half a day off every 2 weeks. And they said, well, that's really way too much time off for you. So I decided to kind of move on from there. However,
I might need another career.
I might need another career. I actually had my own dairy farm for a while. And one of the things I was just learning there is just this, in leadership, it's this commitment that no matter what, dairy farming is 24/7. So I learned persistence. I learned this intensity that needs to go with that. No matter what, no matter how sick you are, you still have to milk the cows, right? So right. I really honor my heritage that way, and just how my parents taught me. But I was called for a bigger purpose. And I even knew when I was 16 through the 4-H program that I was speaking to a group in Toronto. There was 400 executives there. I says, I love this. However, we started the show about purpose. it took me till I was nearly 30 to get clear about, I was to communicate to others, but about what, for what purpose, for what reason. And I went on my own journey with a mentor out of Seattle, Mike McManus, who helped me over a 6-month period of time that I dedicated myself to go on this quest to find out what am I here for, as well as sort of my spiritual journey as well, to say, what's my highest level of contribution? Because when I get this purpose, Doug, inside of me, and all of us have it. So I'm biased. So you can prove me wrong or right. But I said, all of us are born with some kind of purpose, some place that we fit in. Maybe there's more than one. I'm not here to debate that. But when I find it, my energy, I don't believe in motivation. I believe in inspiration. I can't motivate anybody. And in fact, you probably can't even motivate yourself unless you're tapped into that purpose on a long-term sustainable basis. And that's what we're talking about. My meaning comes from contribution. That contribution comes from what I'm tapped to do. I have no idea why I love being in front of a stage like you do with 1,000 people, 2,000 people. I was having lunch with a friend the other day, and the conversation went into purpose. He was, those of us that are baby boomers, just on the edge of it, just rethinking our life. What do I want to do? I was so excited by the end of that conversation, because I gave him a couple ideas of what to do to go to the next level, that he is worthy, that he does have value, that just because you're 60, it's not over. Ageism is out. And that every single person listening to the show has a purpose, has a reason for being here. It's your responsibility to find it. I can't find it for you. Yes, I can help you. You facilitate, you encourage individuals, Dov, with all your work to kind of seek. But I still have to be on the path to do the seeking, to be part of that. And that's where leadership, when leaders know their purpose, part of the challenge today, there's so much noise. There's so much things that drive us into different directions that distract us. What's my anchor? What's my foundation? Well, the foundation is my purpose. So if my purpose is help you find yours, how I do it is constantly evolving. There was no podcast 25 years ago. In fact, I got in this business before there was the internet. I mean, I actually commuted to Detroit for a year when I worked for Chrysler because we couldn't email the program development to them. I actually had to fly there every week for a year. So that's, so not to date myself, I still feel young. I still feel energized. Hopefully that comes across. So how it's going to be done, or e-learning, or in this kind of format on a TV show that's being streamed, who would have thought of that? I mean, the ability to discover has never been better.
Yeah, and I think that, as you said, leaders who are great leaders are all, we used to have the saying, readers are leaders, and I certainly believe that. I read a lot, and I know you do. But I think readers are learners, and I think that they're committed to constant learning by whatever mechanism is possible, whether that's reading physical books, audio podcasts, videos, research, whatever. Every leader I know is a great leader, is ferocious at learning. And every leader I know who is arrogant, I've already got it. I know the answer. I've been in this game for 20 years. I'm like, oh my goodness, like you are so dead in the water. I've been doing this 34 years. I don't know anything. I mean, I sometimes wake up and go, what do I really know about this? Not much. I got to go back. And like you said, even an hour or two a day, which is the same for me, I often feel like, I'm really behind the 8 ball here. I got to pick up my game.
Well, I love how things are expedited with things like podcasts. I'm an audio learner. I mean, we teach learning styles. There's some people don't believe in it, but I would refute that.
Yep.
I consume in the structure and the context that works for me. So that's the encouragement for the leaders out there, is don't be contained. Way back years ago when I did my MBA before I did my doctorate, we had a non-traditional executive MBA where I went to classes on the weekend. The local universities were trying to close us down. You know why? Because MBAs are on Tuesdays and Thursday nights from 7 to 9. It was ridiculous. So then all of a sudden Phoenix created blended learning so that I can consume. So the responsibility is that there is always a way, in some form or not, that will be able to serve the learner today. It's a market of response. And so there's no excuse not to learn. No,
absolutely. So moving back to purpose and specifically to yours, you said that you had this sense of it even in your teens, and it took you into your 30s. And you talk about, purpose in the way that I do, in that it's holistic.
Yes.
And you speak about that, of course, in the book as well, in the Quest for Purpose, that we need a holistic approach to purpose. And for you, that includes a spiritual path. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I grew up in a Christian home, and then I just was looking at all these people that were out there that were part of that faith. And, I just went off, I won't say off the, I was crazy. I was wild. I can't even repeat what I did on this show. It would be all bleeped out as part of that. But what I discovered as I got into my later 20s is that it was just not fulfilling. As soon as we start to look for things for, if it's alcohol, if it's attracted to other people like women for me or whatever it was, it just never filled the void. So I always knew that there was something else that was going on. So I respect everybody's journey. But at the same time, there's a chapter in my book, I talk about meaning before purpose. And I said, part of your quest is to confirm, determine, vet through, what does spirituality mean to you? What is that? And so I have a definition of it, and you're not going to waver me off of it. And I believe in sort of the focus. And it just, when you know that there's a bigger picture going on than yourself, if it's just us, Dove, boy, that is so shallow for me. That's really where that's at. And the anchor is, and because the other purpose books that are out there, they avoid talking about the spiritual nature. I believe that we're spiritual beings having a physical experience. And so I'm not getting new on you. I'm just saying, just look around, just the intuition, what we have, who we are, is that I believe that we're made in his image. And so that's where this creativity, this overwhelming capability, and AI and all the things that are coming out is coming from that spiritual grounding. And so it's from that. And then of course, the other responsibilities of this holistic side. I was listening to a couple of your podcasts, and I was also reviewing the ones that I've done, over 100 or so in the last little while. And it's interesting, one of the core things occurring is that those people that are being successful in life are conscious and self-aware. And even your last guest was talking about self-awareness. Now, self-awareness then goes into this holistic side. So way back, I'll tell the story now. In 1987, 88, I was diagnosed as manic depressive, but I wasn't manic depressive. On my own accord, with a friend of mine says, no, Ken, you need to get a glucose tolerance test. We found out I was hypoglycemic.
Hypoglycemic, yeah.
And I was medicating myself with a few gallons of Coke per day. And so when I cut and changed my diet, it stabilized my blood sugar. And then all of a sudden my mood swings from the, top of 101 Trade Center kind of thing down to the lowest is way more stable as that. So when we think about being a successful leader and purpose, then I need to consider all the components. I can't just say, okay, Ken, you're going to help other people with their purpose. But if I don't take care of my own health, my own wellness, I'm not going to bring my best. I'm not going to feel my best. I'm going to maybe be tired, lethargic. My cognitive abilities are going to go down. My irritability is going to go up. All these things, because I actually have a diploma in nutrition and genetics. So that's where I get this passion that we're killing ourselves in how we eat and just our environment. And so that's another passion there as far as that holistic side, and just really taking care of ourselves in all areas of our life.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. Big background in neurosciences and in physical sciences, particularly related to the body, my background in health and all that kind of stuff. So I'm totally with you. But I do want to address something that you brought up there, because I want to make sure that people grasp it. And that is, you talked about the spiritual path, and obviously, you have your own faith, and that's great. Do you believe that somebody has to have a religious attachment in order to fulfill their purpose?
Well, first of all, oddly enough, I'm anti-religious. I just believe in the spiritual side. Religion is man-made. I mean, from a Christian point of view, I said that religion really has you to conform. Jesus came to transform. So those are the kind of the different mindset is one of the reasons I left. However, I do believe, if you want to believe in nothing, it's completely your choice, right? That's part of that, but that is your belief system. Know that no human being can have no belief system. If your belief system is nothing, that is your belief system.
That's a belief system.
And it has consequences or impact or outcomes, whatever word you want to use. I do believe there's a benefit that you getting grounded and centered and confirmed about, is there something bigger going on? If there's something bigger going on, then that is your responsibility to do that journey. Get clear. What does that mean? What does that mean for you? You know, for me, I just said, okay, I know that I'm free and clear. I know where my eternity's in. I've got that peace as part of that. Now, when I forget that, then I screw up just like everybody else. I'm still human in that way. But my encouragement is yes. Can you do it without it? Sure, but why would you want to?
Well, I think it's an important piece here that people gather is that, you know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ken, but I don't think that for a moment you're implying that somebody has to have your faith to find their purpose.
No, I won't put that on somebody. I would share that with them about how I found it, but everybody has their own choices to go through it. Now, there's others that might think different than that. But
so I think it's important for people to realize that, you know, I personally believe that purpose is a spiritual path. I don't think it for a second is a religious path, but I think it's a spiritual path. And I think that, you know, whatever faith you choose or don't choose is your choice. However, I would put it to our listeners, our viewers, that what if you came here for a reason? Simple as that. What if you just came here for a reason? You came to the planet for a reason that you know you're one in multiple trillion opportunities to be alive, and you're actually alive. So what if you came here with a reason and a purpose? And you know, even if you start there, you have to ask the deeper questions. And one of the things about a spiritual path, not a religious path, but a spiritual path, is a path of questioning. And very often a religious path is a path of no questioning. So and I think that's the point that you're trying to get across, Ken, right? Is that we've got to be willing to question who we are, why we lead, what is it that we're doing, why are we doing it? And that in and of itself is a spiritual journey. It is a quest to find something deeper as opposed to the next bigger house or bigger car or nicer, whatever it might be. Yeah,
and you know what? You're never going to get it there because there's always something else, right? It's part of the Western phenomena that when I get that, then I'll be happy.
Yeah, I'll be happy when?
It never happens. There's always a bigger house. There's always a more expensive car. There's always a better suit. So, you know, how can I be in the moment? That goes back to self-awareness, mindfulness, whatever word is grounded, centered, we talk about in leadership.
Of course.
We have a leadership skills assessment. The first two skills to be an effective leader is grounded and centered. Can I actually be here now? Can I be conscious? Can I be awake of my emotions? What does it mean? Where do they come from? And even purpose comes into that because it drives people's motivations.
Absolutely.
It drives what they will do and what they don't do. Belief systems highly influence your behaviors.
Absolutely. And you know, this is one of the centers of the work that we do is that, you know, we ask a question. The simple question is, tell me something you believe. And I say, I don't care what it is, tell me anything. And they tell me something and I go, okay, why do you believe it?
Exactly.
And I go, you know, you don't have to answer me the question. I just want you to ask yourself that question about everything you believe. Because until you can own it, it's not your belief. It's something you adopted, and that's not truth for you yet. But if you do that, it's incredibly powerful. I tell this story of this, that we as you know, we had a seminar company that was for the public. Now we work with companies like you do, but we used to have one for the public. And there was a program we had, and there was a gentleman in there, and I said, is there anybody of a religious faith there? And he said, yes, he was Catholic. I said, terrific. And I said, why are you a Catholic? And he said, well, you know, I was born into a Catholic family. I go to Catholic church. Well, I said, no, but why are you a Catholic? And he got really irritated and really pissed off and you know, agitated, definitely agitated. And at the end, you know, he was definitely irritated with me, walked away. I bumped into him on the street, I think 3-4 months later, literally on the street on Robson Street. And I said, "Oh, Franco, how are you?" And he said, "Good." And he said, "Oh," he goes, "You really pissed me off." And I said, "Yeah, I know." And he goes, "You know when?" I said, "Absolutely, I know exactly when." And he said, and he said, "Can I give you a hug?" And I said, "Of course." I said, "Why?" He says, "Because I really want to thank you." And I said, "For what?" He goes, "Because you asked me a question, which was, why was I a Catholic?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "And I gave you all my answers and you wouldn't take any of them." He goes, "And you made me question that." He goes, "Here's the interesting thing." I said, "What?" He said, "I'm a Catholic." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Yeah, thank you for asking me, because now it's my choice. Before," he said, "I never considered that. I just adopted it as that's the rank and file of what I'm supposed to do." He goes, "But now I actually have chosen it." And he goes, "And my faith is so much deeper." And I go, "Great." He goes, "I now understand you were not trying to talk me out of Catholicism. You were just asking me to own whatever it was." Yeah. And I think that that's what we have to do with any belief, not just in religion, but even the style of leadership that we do. You know, there's a lot of people out there, you know this as well as I do, Ken, because of our age bracket, but there's a lot of people who still think that authoritarian dictatorial leadership is the way to go, because that's what they learned.
Well, and they don't know anything else, do they?
No, and they've never questioned, and that's the problem.
Yeah, and nobody's mentored them in a different direction. I get that. One of the things when we do our 3-day certification on our assessments, our personal or professional mastery course, one of the questions we ask, Doug, is in a very intense format is, why are you here?
Yep.
And we ask that question over and over and over for several minutes. I have people that are, quite mature who break down and, are weeping, or other ones where they actually just are like a deer in headlights. They don't know how to answer it because they've never asked the question. They've been so busy being busy. They haven't gone to the deeper area about, why am I here? What's my purpose? What's my reason for being? And then out of that leads all the different works, all the different pathways. There's never been more opportunities to realize your purpose in this world than now, which is actually the opposite side of that. For the purpose work I do, is because there are so many choices. If I don't get anchored in my purpose, I can get confused. I can get overwhelmed. There's a thing I teach around our values assessment where I don't believe in situational, what I call situational choices. There are so many choices. There's 40,000 job titles in the US and Canada now. There wasn't that many 200 years ago. So what if I knew what my purpose was? What if I knew what my core, what we call behavioral values were? What if I filtered those decisions, everything in my life around those core values? Now, I don't get to decide what they are. You decide. And what makes a value important to you? You do. And so this is all in the Quest for Purpose book, where I talk about those core values, determine those. Have you done that work? Will you get clear about what those core values are? So, and when we talk about behavioral values for me would be like independence, responsibility, challenge, variety. And so when I look at my job, my role, is that represented in the choices I'm going to make? Or example is, let's say one of our values is tranquility. Well, working into a call center where it's credit collection probably is not a good idea if you want to be a lack of conflict. Right. So now all of a sudden I can line my choices intentional, deliberately together. Easy, not easy peasy, but it's way simpler when you know that you know that you know, because confusion is really hard to make good decisions around it. So
yeah, I think you're so right.
You're working on clarity.
Yeah, you're so right. We're the most distracted we've ever been, and if we're not grounded in what our purpose is, what our values are, it's so easy to get pulled off track. And I one of my quotes recently was that the world is full of opportunity, but it's not really an opportunity if it's out of alignment with your purpose. And if you don't know your purpose, everything is an opportunity, and that it will drive you crazy. It will just drive you nuts.
Well, one of the things we teach, Dov, is that my ability to say no is equal or more important than my ability to say yes.
Absolutely.
And so because we have this, I think you remember the saying where you have this shiny object thing where something
SOS, shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, is that we look at that and it distracts us. So if I could say, no, that's not part of my space, it's not where I'm at, Dev's working there, Ken's working there, that's fine, others will fulfill that need.
Sure.
I'm going to say, no, boy, there's a lot of freedom, there's a lot of energy in my contribution, and my meaningfulness and my engagement go way up.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking of that, we both know, and I'm sure many of our listeners and viewers know, that 70+% of workers are disengaged. Why do you think so many people are not living on purpose, that they're not fully engaged with life?
Well, there's a couple of reasons, and thank you for that question, Dov. My heart, actually the saddest thing in society is that you have this 70-80% of people that are disengaged or don't like what they do.
Mm-hmm.
That's sad.
Yeah.
One of the number one reasons is, and I was having lunch with Richard Bowles. He's now passed away, but he wrote What Color's Your Parachute? He was been in the career industry for 50 years. And then Dick Nodell, when he was 50 years. So here's 100 years of experience. I said, why is it with all the opportunities out there, we have so many people dissatisfied? And they said, well, in unison, people have not been willing to do the work. Self-awareness takes time. Self-awareness. I spent 6 months with this person in Seattle. I drove 2 hours each way, 2.5 hours each way for 6 months to go meet with them. So we'd mentor, so I'd force and filter through. See, if I don't know what my purpose is, then my purpose is to find my purpose. And
Absolutely.
That takes effort. So rather than being distracted and being in the stands, rather than a participant on the field, I need to be able to do the work. I need to invest in myself. I need to clarify. Now, it doesn't necessarily happen right away. Sometimes you can find out what you don't want to do, which is okay. It helps to clarify. So that pathway, which I thought I might be interested in, is now gone. And because I engaged it and I went onto a different space. So you need to do the work. That's where, when I wrote out the book, I said, here's a roadmap. Here are the steps you need to take. A lot of people won't take it. Then the other one is that when we think about work, when the Gallup survey came out, right, it said only 13% of the population around the world was engaged. US and Canada, the highest at 29%. Then we have countries like China that's 6%, Holland that's like 9%, Japan's like 7%. Is that culturally, is soul matters. Soul matters. And so as a leader, you're going to get me wrapped up here. You get me just wound up, Dov, is that leaders out there that don't care for the soul of their people, that's soulless leadership. And so one of the things is that our job as leaders is to make sure that our other people that are around us, they're living on purpose. A lot of people also live in fear, Dov, is that if I quit this job, so out of fear, and that's actually one of the components in my book around mindset, is that even if I know my purpose, if I'm surrounded by fear, I'm not going to make the difficult decisions or the courageous decisions to go in directions that will fulfill me. I had my own dairy farm. I left. I'm the firstborn, third generation male from Eastern Europe. I'm from Hungary, right, as far as my parents go. I was called a traitor when I left the family dairy farm. It was everything I could do to leave. So there's cultural pressures, there's cultural expectations. My wife works at a university, international students from different parts of the world where their parents are sending them to go to university to take courses they hate.
Sure.
And so, but it's expected, and this is what you will do, Dov, and this is our family, and that's the direction you would go. So part of this is to give ourselves permission to go on this journey, to do this discovery, to not get stuck. The other one is bring people, maybe I can get into solutions here, bring people that help you. Borrow from Dov's courage, borrow from Dov's podcast, help him, let him get into your space to encourage you to take that one little step, whatever it might be, that one course, to try something, find a mentor, find somebody that will help you to go to the next level. Don't do this alone. Don't be a solo kind of act, is that this is where you engage others. That's why we're in business forever. There's always people that are going to be in this journey, but it's very fulfilling for us when we can get a leader that transforms, like finally gets it, or an individual that finally allows himself to go in the space about why they were always here in the first place.
Let's dive into it a little bit. Let's go in that direction, because you and I understand that it is a journey. It is a journey of self-discovery. It's a commitment to that. And as you said, some people won't go there, and that's fine. I'm not dragging anybody along, but there are, I'm certain, viewers, listeners right now who are going, yeah, I really want to do this purpose work. I want to understand that. What would be your guidance? Where can they begin? What's the first step that you would, I know you've laid out a lot of stuff in the book. So where would you start? Somebody who says, you know what, I am a leader. I'm in that position. I've gotten the position, but I feel like I don't know what's the next thing to do to find my purpose other than I want to find my purpose.
Okay. Let me just back up 1 second. I want to make sure I mention this here for all the listeners. I'm going to have a gift for everybody so that I'm going to lay this out for them.
Fabulous.
I have this gift at the end of the show, and we'll let them know how to get that from us because I want everybody to get it and because you've been so kind to me. When we think about purpose, my encouragement to everybody listening here is, okay, if you're stuck, first of all, stop with the guilt of being stuck. Just shift over, because if you're guilty about being stuck, then you're not going to be able to move forward. So let that go first.
I'll just give you a Dove quote on that. Stop giving yourself shit for giving yourself shit.
Well, fair enough. Coming from the dairy,
so dig in.
Coming from the dairy farm, I get that completely. That just works perfectly. Not a problem. Not a problem with that. So the other one is that life leaves clues. And so a lot of what people are looking for, they just have not been paying attention. Mm-hmm. So one of the steps in the book, we call it your life review. And depending on your age, if you're 18 or you're 80, it's obviously the experience is going to be a little bit different. And what happens is what's your life purpose for most people, Dove, is too big. Mm-hmm. So let's start breaking it down into little bite-sized pieces. So what I do is I actually have people through like a workshop, and we'll eventually have this online where I say, okay, what are some of the things in your life that you like? So one of the things we do is senses. Okay, so when we say senses, do you like waterfalls? Do you like motor vehicles? Do you like being in the mountain? Do you like being in the ocean? Do you like hiking? Do you like flowers? Do you like food? So you're not trying to make any sense of this right now.
No.
And so what I do, you're writing basically an autobiography of all the clues and experiences in life. And here's what we're doing. I'm asking you in this experience to only write down those things that really are interesting to you, that excite you, nothing neutral, nothing negative. So I don't need to know that. I don't need to know that. So then I would say geography. Do you like being in the city? Do you like to be in the country? Do you like, castles in the UK? Maybe you like to be in the Great Barrier Reef and diving there in Australia. I don't know. And so then we do the senses. Then we say, well, what kind of people do you like hanging out with? What do they like? What are their values? What do they say? So a lot of times I believe that procrastination is actually a good sign because you're doing the wrong thing or you're doing the right thing with the wrong people. And so I could
stop, because that is important. I want people to hear that again, because I think that it's going to be very easy to let that just drift by. And that for me is a very important point. So please tell our viewers, our listeners that again.
Okay. So procrastination could be because you're doing the wrong thing, or you're doing the wrong thing with the wrong people, but you could be doing the right thing with the wrong people.
Exactly.
And so environment matters. So when we think about documenting, what kind of people, what are the values? How do they treat you? I was talking to an individual the other day that loved their job, and now they hate their job. Well, we started to go through the list. 10 core things have happened in this company. They changed who they report to. They changed the leader. They changed the office environment. They changed how they were doing the work. They did all of these changes without their involvement whatsoever. They had been there for 10 years. They just feel like they were punched in the gut by Tyson. So just pound, 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 pound. And they said, you know what? No wonder you're not engaged anymore. No wonder you hate it, is because the entire environment is contrary to your value system. You have not been honored. You've not been respected in this whole journey. No wonder you don't want to give them anything else, even though you gave them blood, sweat, and tears and commitment and loyalty, which is your show, for 10 years, and then you weren't respected in this transition. And it was just, it gets me upset because when they were telling me the story, I said, somebody needs to go over and pound that leader. That's how I was feeling, Dove. Mm-hmm. So again, a lot of times we could be doing the right things, But again, out of fear, we don't leave that environment. Is that environment nurturing? Is it developing for you? Now, who gets to decide what an environment is for you that's best? You do. And so that's part of, okay, what are the kind of people you want to do? Now, the other one is we start breaking down experiences. So we're an adventure family. So my kids are 23 and 22. My son is married for a year now, but every year we would go and do something that was memorable, that was an adventure. If it's zip lining in Whistler, if it's bungee jumping, if it's whitewater rafting, if it's go-karting, we ride motorcycles together, hiking all the way to in Waikiki up to Haleaka and Maui. So we would try to figure out some kind of adventure that would create a memory, and we love doing that. And so that's included in our life. So sometimes our work life isn't fulfilled because we haven't done the holistic side, because our recreational, our social, our friends suck, meaning we haven't taken care of that. We're living a linear life. And so maybe, Dub, you're doing the right job, but you haven't got all these other things. Then we go further and we say, well, what kind of learning do you like? What do you like to learn about? What enthralls you when you're reading about something, or et cetera? So we had a friend of ours says, well, he just likes gaming. Well, guess what? Now he's building games. Right. Now he's a programmer in the gaming industry. He says, well, has no application. Well, of course it does. So, I can't tell you who he's working for, but if he's going to do a PS4 game and he's in that space and he loved it, everybody thought, well, when he was younger, his parents were concerned about him, but that was where his passion was. That's what he loved to do, to create it. So we get people to do this autobiography. And then I do what I call a keyword search. Is you look at the keywords in this autobiography they've written, what words jump out at you. It seems ethereal, but it's really grounded and centered, because it's your connection to your words. And these words come out. And in the end of this whole process, which took me several months to do, we create what we call a keyword sheet. And there's about 12 to 15 keywords that represent your life. And like for me, speaking, spirituality, purpose, travel, helping and inspiring others. These are key words that then represent this purpose for me. And you look at that. And then I finally do, in the end, I get people to create micro vision statements in 12 areas of their life. So again, active tense, so we're breaking it down further. So a micro statement for your health, a micro statement for your family, a micro statement for yourself, your financial side, your community contribution. I believe, the best way to get out of your own crap is to go give to somebody else who needs you. And all the research is clear. It's better to give than to receive. Hey, where did that one come from, right? There was a research study in UBC, and where the professor gave the students each $5. They were able to take that $5, spend it on themselves, or spend it on a friend. Whenever they did the happiness rating, when they spent it on their friend, they felt better.
Yep.
Hello. So stop being self-centered. Go out there, do something for the community, volunteer, get involved with that. So anyways, what's your vision about that? Where would you do it? Where would you volunteer? Who would you want to volunteer for? And so you filter through, and you're building this rich, deep, exciting life that you're responsible for. But again, don't burden yourself with guilt. It doesn't matter what age you are. This ageism stuff, Marshall Goldsmith's now almost 70. I was just in New York with him, a few months ago, and he says, I'm just retiring from coaching, but I'm going to keep going. Alan Weiss, who's a mentor of mine, 73, says, he said, I've never been stronger. I've never been more focused. So I always joke that Moses' first job is when he was 80. And so I said, you know what? There's no age limit here. No. And we know that when people quit and retire, they die quickly because they've lost.
Within 7 years of retirement, on average, a person is dead. And unfortunately, many people are dead before they put them in the ground.
Well, fair enough. Fair enough.
And because they don't have enough purpose, because they don't have enough focus, it's because there's nothing pulling us forward. And I love that your work, like mine, is about digging in deeper, about looking at those deeper questions rather than the surface. And I think that you brought up something that's important, which is, if you haven't found your purpose, you can give yourself crap for that. It doesn't help. And the other thing about it is, and I think what you said there, Ken, is vitally important, is it's a big question. What is my purpose? It's a huge question and can feel overwhelming, particularly if you don't get it in 10 minutes. And most of us are in a hurry. We live in a society that's in a hurry. But rather than looking for this grandiose purpose, which you can get to, by the way, I have a process for it, Ken has a process for it, they're different processes, but they contain lots of the same elements. Nonetheless, if you just look for what is the meaning of anything you do, why am I doing this really? Why am I like and believe me, by the way, I want to say this. It takes courage to ask yourself that question. Why am I doing this? You're in church. Why am I doing this? Am I doing this because this is what my mom and dad did? Or am I actually wanting to be here? Why am I sitting with my children right now? Is that because I'm supposed to do that because I'm a parent? Why am I actually doing these? These are tough questions. These are courageous questions. But you start with the smallest possible thing you can find rather than trying to do this grandiose thing, because actually going to the grandiose is a really great way to quit. It's too big. I can't do it. So do something small. Why am I going for a walk? Like, simple. And I love that way about you saying, Ken, it's like, bring it back to the basics. Don't be so grandiose. You'll get there, but bring it back to the basics first.
Well, the other thing, and perfect, let's say I want to run a marathon and I haven't been running at all. If I go out and try to train tomorrow, I'm not running the marathon tomorrow. I'm going to get there, but you got to give myself some time to move towards it. I mean, a lot of times people look at you or I and say, oh man, it's easy for you. I said, are you kidding? It's been 30 years of working in this, of having our doubts, having our questions, the imposter syndrome, whatever it is that we've been through to get there. Sometimes even say, am I worthy to talk to some other people about purpose of, because I was just doubting mine a few minutes ago. Because all of us as human beings go through some of those things. Now, just a little sidebar, not to kind of interrupt your flow, but I wanted to mention a couple of things that undermine or sabotage our success. In the book, I talk about character traits, which are independent of purpose, but also allow us or would undermine our ability to realize purpose or fulfill purpose or live purpose. And several of those character traits I put in there, one of them is forgiveness. Is that if I have, I don't want to get sidebarred here. I don't actually believe in mental illness per se. I believe that we have a thinking problem, not a mental problem. But a lot of research around depression or feeling down is around there's unforgiveness somewhere in your heart. Well, how could I live my purpose if I have unforgiveness in it? Now, that could be yourself. Maybe there's something that you did when you're younger and you're not. And then the other one is we know forgiveness doesn't say that what the other person did was okay. You were just going to make yourself free of that. Other ones around gratitude, the research shows is that one of the top 3 characteristics of well-being in your life is gratitude, thankfulness. Okay, so if I'm going to live on purpose and I'm a grumpy SOB and I'm not thankful about anything, well, that's not going to go well for you either. So I list out about 12 different characteristics. The other one is integrity. There's so much stuff that's out there right now. I had a friend of mine from South Africa. He's out speaking. He says, you know what the number 1 contributor to poverty in the world is? He says, corruption. And so when all the food and all the money goes out there, I have a friend of mine who has a ministry in Haiti, and his food after the earthquake was on the docks for 2 years because he couldn't pay the bribes to get it off to the people there. So again, integrity, in spite of what everybody says, authenticity, honesty, trustworthiness, these are all characteristics that a great loyal leader or leader is going to create loyalty is going to have, but also for yourself. Are you operating integrity from a purpose point of view? This is where sometimes we get on energy, where you talked about people doing stuff as an obligation. Why am I walking? Do I want to be with my kids, or do I really, is this an obligation that I've done because somebody else said that I'm supposed to do it? Or do I move into a place as this is where I want to be right now? Where, and I'm going to say this, I don't say this very often. I just love being here right now with you, Dove. It's just, I am energized. Thank you for allowing this process to happen, to be able to occur. I just feel the connection. I feel the energy. And I'm just thankful at this very moment to be able, at some point, maybe there's one person in the audience that's going to have a transformation as a result of this. Then we are thankful for that. Then we have done our job.
Thank you. That's awesome. Listen, what was the turning point for you? I mean, you talked about a wild youth. But what was the turning point for you in your leadership style?
Well, as far as me moving to this space, as I mentioned, I started my own dairy farm. That was kind of expected. And it's about 5:30 in the morning, a May morning. The sun is coming up. I'm already out there doing chores. Okay. And I looked out the window and I asked myself this question, which everybody in this audience could as well. And that is, if I was here 20 years from now, would that be okay?
Mm-hmm.
And my answer was immediately no. It wouldn't be okay to be here 20 years from now just doing the same thing. And so that was the turning point to move into this profession, to be serious about it. So I had talked about it, but I had not taken the steps like I was talking about before: courage, the convenience of a job with a car, and all these kinds of things that come into play with it. And then I just went on this journey. And it's interesting, law of attraction is real. Is that what you expect and where you want to go? So I got into a franchise to start sales training. And then I ran into Dr. Terry Anderson, who founded the company I own now, in a chamber event. I didn't even know that he existed in Abbotsford. I'd never met him before. Walk in, and 2 weeks later, we were partners in this business. And so it was just, what would have happened, Dove, if I never came across Terry at that time? My life's work, 20 years, is now tied up from that one interaction. And so that's my encouragement to people there, is that you're really going to get back what you put out. And so that turning point is to be open to the possibilities, to give myself permission, and also then to say, it's okay. Even though you've had this dairy thing and you're good at it, it's not what you're called to do. It's okay. That's what happens for a lot of people. I have a colleague who is a medical doctor. And 10 years ago, I was coaching him around his purpose. And I says, I hate being a medical doctor. And I said, so why are you a doctor? He says, well, my mom, my dad, my grandparents all wanted it for me. I said, well, you're almost 40 years old. What are you talking about? And so it was really borrowing from my courage. Guess what he does now, Dove? He is a coach to medical doctors who are suffering burnout. And he absolutely, so he has the credibility as a medical doctor. He has the credibility of the burnout and helping them in transitioning. So that was a long answer to a short question about, the choice. But it's always been a journey. It's constantly changing. It's constantly evolving if we're continuing to.
But it's important because, again, you reiterated something that I think is highly valuable, which is you have got to be willing to see the signs. And I've always said that, people are incredibly blind to what is obvious. And I mean, and first of all, some of it is just chosen ignorance, but a lot of it is not. And what I mean by that is, one of my quotes is that no one is objective in a subjective reality. You cannot step fully outside of yourself. So you're going to miss clues. So you need coaches, you need mentors, you need guides. You can need every great leader I've spoken to. You just heard Ken talk about it. We've all had at least one fantastic mentor, and probably many more, and usually multiples even throughout our lives. You can't have that objectivity in your own life. You need it. Even the best teachers, best coaches, best mentors, best guides I know all have mentors, coaches, and guides. And this is, if you're looking for the clues of your life, that's where you'll find them. Ken, we're coming towards the end of the show, and I want to ask you a couple of quick questions. So first of all, guilty pleasure. What's a guilty pleasure for you?
Chocolate bars. And you know what? I'm anti-sugar and whatever, but man, I just enjoy that for sure.
Okay. Final piece of practical guidance for our viewers, for our listeners, that they can put into action, preferably in the next 24 hours, certainly the next 2 or 3, maybe even 5 working days. What's the one practical thing you would have them go away and do?
Okay, number 1, make the decision that you're going to do this. So number 2 is start journaling. So I don't care how you journal, if it's a audio podcast and then or like an audio recording, or if you want to write it out old school, if you want to put it on an iPad, is start capturing the ideas. Start giving yourself the ability to go into this space and say, well, what would I do in a perfect world if there were no restrictions, no limitations whatsoever? What would that life look like for me? Allow yourself to kind of go into that space and let this thing start to evolve. Don't try to figure it out. Just allow to go. Start maybe asking some friends, Dov, you've known me for 10 years. What do you think I'm good at? What do you see in me that I might not even see in myself? And then the next one is just commit to the journey. That take as long as it takes to get there, to go to this process, and then do the work. Do the work. This is not for, okay, I'm going to just show up and 10 minutes later. This is for people who are committed to it, that are going to take responsibility. And you will always get there. Some people might be 1 month, some people might be 1 year, some people might be 2 years. Does it matter? How old would you be in 2 years if you didn't do it? You'd be 2 years older with no purpose. So who cares how long it takes? And the other one is, even if you get halfway there, you're going to be better off as a result of that. You're going to be starting to be more energized of it. And then there's going to be blips along the way. And then the other one is to listen to your podcast continuously, because you're going to have more ideas about it.
Thank you. That's awesome. Well, I know that you have a gift for our audience. Can you tell us a little bit about that and where they can find it?
I am actually going to give every single person listening to this a copy of my ebook of The Quest for Purpose.
Fabulous.
And so they're going to go to my site, which is kenkeis.com, which is KenKeis.com/Dove. And so there's a hidden spot in there, and you're going to be able to download and get the ebook, The Quest for Purpose, all the content, all the steps, everything that you need to discover your purpose is in that book. I've never done this before, Dove, where I've given away the book for free, but your audience and you guys are worthy of it. I just want to get it out there so that they can engage it. So it's KenKeis.com/Dove.
So KenKeis.com.
No, KEIS.
KEIS. See, there you go. Good. I'm glad we got that. So KenKeis.com/DOV.
That's it, sir.
.com/Dove. And when you go there, you're going to get Ken's latest book, which is The Quest for Purpose, and you're going to get an ebook form. So that's wonderful. Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure and an honor having you with us. We really appreciate it. Hope you'll stay with us to the end. It was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Dove.
And remember, you can listen back to this show. I highly recommend that you listen back. You heard me say this on every show. Don't just listen, put it in action. Information's with the hole in the donut. Transformation comes from application. And remember, you can chat about this show or any other past episodes by going to that group on Facebook, Dov Baron Leadership and Loyalty Podcast. Chat about the show. Invite our guests on there. Come and talk with your friends about it. Talk about this and the other shows, but more than anything, let us know what you got out of it and what you're going to do with it. And of course, make sure you go get that gift from Ken. That's very generous of him. And remember, the research consistently shows that one of the biggest challenges facing even the most successful companies can be somewhat counterintuitive, in that these fast-growing companies often hit a point where they realize they're spending a fortune attracting, training, and developing talent, and having them leave at an alarming rate. If you're sick of investing in training and developing your talent, only have them leave you before you get your ROI, then come talk to us at fullmontyleadership.com, where we provide you with the essential leadership skills to rekindle the hidden loyalty assets inside of your organization by tapping into purpose. fullmontyleadership.com, providing you with the concrete soft skills to get you and your organization to the top and keep you there. Why? Because you can't outsource authenticity. Also, remember to stop by the Matrix, matrix.fullmontyleadership.com. You don't need a www, just matrix like the movie, .fullmontyleadership.com, and get my Authentic Leadership Matrix self-assessment tool for you. It's valued at $197. You get it absolutely free for tuning in. Remember, you can also catch us on Google Play and also Alexa. So just simply say, play Dov Baron Podcast. I want to thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Till next time, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about where your purpose is calling out to you. Stay curious about looking for the signs and paying attention to the signs when they show up. I'm Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness to reach the next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. And I am out.